Are you guys curious on how to make the Anycubic Photon have a little bit less of a smell from the resin? Well, today I'm going to try out a carbon filter air mod. I'm going to slap a fan on there and see if we can't reduce the smells coming out of it. So let's do it. Welcome back, guys. I'm Shane from Fugatech 3D Printing, and as I said, today we are going to be modifying the Anycubic Photon 3D printer. I've had this for a few weeks now, and it's been printing fantastic so far, like mind-blowingly well. I mean, there are a few things. I mean, it is a low-end, or a cheaper version of any of the more higher-end SLA 3D printers. There are some artifacts that come with that and whatnot, but overall quality versus FDM is in a league of its own completely. You cannot get the type of quality from this, or from an FDM machine, any FDM machine, as you can from this one, at least any consumer one, I can say with that. So yeah, so I was browsing Thingiverse for a while, and actually there's a few things that came up in the Anycubic Photon Facebook group on how to reduce the smell. So inside of here, there is a fan in the back that pulls the air from in here down into the lower, the lower section of the printer, and there's some vents in the back, and those vents just basically let air come right out. So right here are those vents, which is great, but you get that smell. And some people have said, "Oh, you should disable that fan." No, because it's there for a reason. The manufacturer said it was safer to keep that in there. There was someone that actually made like a carriage to put carbon pellets in, active carbon pellets, set it on that so it pulls it through there. That's one way to do it, but I didn't feel like trying to find those pellets. They were kind of hard to source because he was from another country. They're easier for him to find, and me to go to the store and try to find that was not going to work out. But then I found this mod, which was pretty simple, and it's just using some carbon filters for like air conditioner, some type of air filtration thing or air purifier. It's just a gigantic sheet of carbon filter. So we're gonna cut that up and put it in here, attach a fan to it. We've got a little on-off switch that's gonna go off of the main power. So when you boot the machine, if this is on, this will turn on, or if you don't want it on, you can leave it off. And the fan inside will still push through the carbon in there, but having that assistant fan helping really pull the air through will do a lot more. And again, this was just something I found on Thingiverse, and I thought I would try it out. So before we go anywhere, we're going to talk about what we need. Obviously, first we're going to need to print out this part, which I'll put a link for it down in the video description off of Thingiverse. You're going to need to print this out. I'm using PLA, should work just fine, nice and rigid material, make a nice seal. You're going to need a little DC toggle switch. So there's a bunch of different ones. This one is a 20mm one. It was a little tight, and even though he said this was for a 20mm switch, it was a little tight for me, so I had to take a file to it just a little bit, and mine is also keyed. So there's a little post kind of on the side of it, and I had to make room for that as well. I just used a square file, filed that in, and then it fit in, very, very snugly. That's not going to come out anytime soon. We're obviously going to need a fan. So this is the one that they had recommended. It's actually a very popular 80mm 12 volt DC brushless fan. It's supposed to be pretty quiet with a high CFM, means it moves a lot of air and is still pretty quiet. So we're going to see how that turns out. We'll be modifying this to connect to there. We're going to need, obviously we need 4 screws to just glue this piece together. I'm using 10mm M3s, but I think they said to use 6. I just don't have any. 10 is the shortest I have in a multiple set. So I have 10 for that. I also have 4 for that, goofy. I have, and that also needs, going to need some M3 nuts that are captive in this piece. I have 4 10mm M3s, which are going to replace the 4 that are holding on this back air vent here, because the ones that are in there are too short once you add in this 3D printed piece. So I have those. We're going to need some zip ties. That's how we're actually connecting the fan to this. I'm only doing that because that's the way he designed it. I'm sure there's probably a better way to design this differently, and I'm sure other people will do it, but that's just what I'm using. We're obviously going to need the carbon sheet, so I'll put a link down in the description of where I bought that from. I'm going to be using some insulated spade connectors. So these are actually going to fit right over the back of the plug. They just slide right on there. Again, these are insulated. If you had non-insulated ones, you're going to need a heat source, or either heat gun or a lighter, and some shrink tubing. That way you can make sure there's no exposed terminals. Got to be sure we're safe about that. I do have a non-insulated one here, which I can show you guys in close up later of what that might look like. And again, you'll need to put tape or something over this one to keep it isolated. A pair of strippers, a pair of crimpers for the connectors, and then I just have a, what's this one? This is a 2.5 millimeter ball head driver so that I can get out these screws. This is what you use, and pretty much M3 socket heads use this size. Oh, and some hookup wire. So this is a set I got off of, I think, eBay a long time ago, and each one of these is 50 feet, and they're just little hookup wires. Got a bunch of different colors. For this, I will use black and red just to keep it easy for people to see in the video, but you can use any color you want. Just remember what color you use for positive and negative. It won't really matter from there. And your Anycubic Photon. So that all being said and done, I think we will now get started. All right, so first off, we need to get this back cover off with just these 4 screws, which makes it pretty nice and easy. I did take this off once just to kind of investigate inside a little bit, and I will say that putting these back in, they have to be perfectly straight, just because of the way that they had, you know, tapped the aluminum siding on this thing. And we're going to be careful once we're in here. You need to really be careful because we don't want to touch anything that's going on up in there. So you can see part of where the LCD is. We have our Z motor right here. And our main board is over there, inside there. And that green connector, that's the main, that comes from this power socket. So this is where your power supply connects to. It goes along and powers the board right there. Or actually goes to the switch first, then goes to there. But either way, that is where we're going to be connecting, and that is just a Phoenix connector. That's what I call it. So we're going to pop that off, and we're just going to loosen the screws, add in our new leads, and then reattach them. So let's take a look at the actual printed part, and it actually is in 3 pieces, and it is quite tight to put it together once it's done because it does lock on. Has some little teeth in there to lock in. But so I already pre-cut my carbon, and I have, I think, 4 sheets in here. 2, 3, 4. I'm hoping that that won't restrict airflow too much. I might go down to 3, but for now, it's going to work. And then this right here is what we're going to attach our fan to. It does have a little circle cutout in it, which is what our wires from the fan are going to go through. And yeah, so we're not going to need this connector that's on the fan here. So we're just going to cut that right off. And we also are not going to need the blue wire. So I'm going to untwist the blue wire from here. We're going to pull that as far back as I can. And I guess just right to here is fine. I'm just going to snip that. That is just a signal line so that it can be PWM controlled. But we don't need that for this. We just need the black and the red. Now these are too long. And actually now I'm thinking about it, you might not need any hookup wire. If you do this right, you could just use the wires from this, and that would make it pretty easy. So we're going to, and I have it hooked through the other part of the fan here, so it just hooks into there. We're going to feed these wires through the little square hole, and that lines up exactly with where it comes through on the fan, and it just sandwiches right on there like so. There's our wires coming through. And now we're just going to go ahead and use our zip ties to zip tie this on. And I'm going to keep the locking part of the zip tie on the top outside of each one of these. That way it doesn't interfere with the interlocking mechanism inside of this when I go to put it back on. Okay, so the zip ties are on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, so the switch is just, again, you just push it right into there, it fits in. This, I just traced it out and cut it out of the sheets, so that was in there nice and easy. And again, I just kind of cut them to size, and they all just kind of fit in there real nicely like. And we're gonna put this on, so I need to just rearrange my sheets a little bit. Oh, I have 5 sheets in there actually, that's how many I have in there. I'm gonna put the wires the closest to the switch that I can. So these feed in just through the grating. I'm just going to put it on the closest piece to there. And now that that is in, we'll put the rest of my carbon sheets in. 3, 4, 5. And then keep pulling as I snap that into place. So here it is. Again, the fan, where your motor mounts, a lot of people don't know this, where your motor mounts and you have the cross beams, that is the air is coming through the fan that way. So this is where the fan exits air. Some fans, so this one actually does have it, super small right there. It does tell us that it rotates this way and that the air goes through the fan this way. Not all fans have that, but it is a very useful thing to know if you're ever trying to figure out the direction of a fan. And again, I only put the cables right near here so that it's easy to hook up. I will say this, I'm never good with wiring these up. It takes me a little bit of time to figure out, but because I'm gonna put spades on here, if I ever screw up the way it connects, it's pretty easy. For the most part, these all have 3 tabs on them, 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is gonna be our ground, so that's gonna be the ground, so it's gonna be our black wire from the switch or from the fan, and the black wire from the power source is going to go to 1. Those are going to jointly go together. Number 2, the center pin is going to be, or tab, that's going to be the power from the power source. So coming from the connector that's going to the direct power supply to the center pin. And then the bottom, so number 3 pin, is going to be the red lead, our positive lead from our fan. So this is just going to kind of slip onto there like so. I'll leave a little bit of extra space, and then you have the black will both go to here with the ground from the main power, and again positive to that center one. So I'm going to wire that up real quick. I'm not going to kind of go through on how I'm doing that. I'm just going to do it. There's plenty of tutorials online on how to do that nice and close, but it's pretty easy and I'll show you when it's done. Okay, so here it is. And as I said, we have the going number 3, we have the power, the positive lead from the fan. We have the negative lead going to number 1, and that also has another black lead coming off it. This is going to go to the power. And then the center one is where our positive is going to, and that's also going to go straight to our board. So now I'm going to figure out how in the world to get to the board, and I'll show you guys how to do that. All right, so looking at it, there are some screws right here in the side. There's 4 holes that will loosen, it looks like they loosen up the bottom plate, which you have to be a little careful because that also houses the fan that cools the LCD heatsink, which is all the way at the bottom of this machine. So once we take this off, we just need to be super careful on doing it, and I don't know, it's not loosening up. There are 2 more screws right here in order to get that bottom panel off. I think. I don't know, we're going to find out here in a second. Close you back up. Oh, there we go. That is how you do it. So now we can see inside. And yeah, so we have our fan. Again, this cools this great big heat sink here. Let's see if I can get this main connector off. Oh, damn, oh, that came right off, easy enough. As you see, it's just 2, you see here, it's just 2 little Phillips head turned down, so I am going to need to get a Phillips, which I have here. And I'll just take out the negative first. Oddly enough, these are tinned, which they really shouldn't be, but they are. So nothing I can do about that. I need to make sure to, there's all those screws. God, I feel bad about this being tinned, but I need to turn this on its side. Be careful to watch which way your cables are going. I don't want to break anything. And I'm going to put this just like so, just so I can get it into this connector with the cable. So we'll put that one back in. Stick my lead in there with it. Tighten that down. Get the positive lead from mine. Tighten that down. Okay, give them the tug test, and the black one came out, so that one was not seated in there well enough. And a little tug test, just make sure that your connections are solid. You don't want anything loose because they will arc. All right, so now I can feed this back down here. Plug that back in. All right, so before I do anything else, I need to make sure this actually is gonna work. So I'm gonna plug it in. Be super careful when you do this, please. And I'm gonna make sure that the fan turns on when I hit the switch. Otherwise, I wired something wrong. Again, I'm not good with these switches, so I figured out what my problem was, is that I had the order of wires incorrect. So what I ended up having to do is, what happened was is that I plugged it in and it wouldn't turn on. I was like, what in the world is wrong? And this switch was on, the power switch, the printer was on, and this was off. As soon as I would turn on the power switch to the fan, the printer would boot. I'm like, so somehow the way that I had it wired, it was interrupting the flow of power to the board, even though it was simultaneously connected to the board power. I don't know how that was working out, but either way, so I changed it around so that now pin 1 is the positive lead from the power coming into the switch. Pin 2, the center, is the positive lead from the fan, and pin 3 is where the neutrals are going. Okay, so right now it is in the off position, printer's off. I turn the printer on, it boots up. I can't show you, but the photon screen is lit up. There's the beep for it, and then if I turn on the fan, there's the fan running. It is a little loud, but it moves a ton of air. Can't really feel a ton sucking through it, but I think it should help out. I did take out 2 squares, so I'm using 3 squares of carbon in there instead of 5. This gives me a little more air pull. I probably could do less, maybe go down even to 2 maybe, and see how that goes. Maybe I'll try that real quick. All right, so that's all wired up now. And all I gotta do is put the bottom base back on. Be very careful with the ribbon cable that's in there. Reattach that. Reattach the new back plate onto this. We should be in business, so I'll do that real quick. There it is, the final bit. It's all now together. We'll do one final check here to make sure everything powers on, all hunky-dory. Some power, turn it on, photon, wait for the beep. There's the beep, and then turn on the fan, and there it is. Switch all the way in. So that moves quite a bit. Now this is a little loud, but for me, I actually print with this machine in a totally different room. I have another table set up with all my resin gear where I do my post-processing on resin, and that is all in a different room. I don't do it in here. If I did do it in here, it might be more of a hindrance. It's also more of a health hazard. So I ended up going down to 2 sheets of carbon. We'll see how that turns out. I don't know how good that's gonna be. It might be great, it might be horrible. I don't know how long that'll last either, because I don't know much about the carbon sheets. This says for the manufacturer of this, it said every 2 to 3 months, but that's with it running all the time in an air purifier. I'm wondering if this will last a little longer or a little less, just because it's going to be dealing with so much more smell and talks behind it. Not every resin is also printed equally. I'm gonna, my resin experience is pretty limited right now, but I know the Anycubic green smells horrendous. Their orange, I honestly can't really even smell it. Maybe it's the difference between their translucent and their opaque colors. I don't know. I just received some new filament So I just received some new resin recently from a different manufacturer. I'm gonna be testing out, seeing how that works out, and I'll see how the smell is with that, with this little mod added on. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video. I hope it helps you out. I hope it helps me out too, but I won't be able to tell until I actually get printing on this, which I will probably take this down to that room and get printing right away. If it did help you out, if you did try this out and it worked, please give the video a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys on what you guys thought of the video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about doing this, please let me know down below. Again, I have no verification this will actually work. I just thought maybe it will. Someone made it on Thingiverse, I would try it out. If you guys want to stay tuned what's going on, make sure you hit that big subscribe button, hit that bell icon, that way you get a notification when I upload new content, and that way you guys know via phone or email what's going on my channel. If you want to help me out and do projects like this, make sure you become a patron. It takes $1 to do that, or you don't have to, but you can if you want to. You get access to my after show and my Patreon feed, and that's where I talk about other things, what my life is like, where I live, and just a little more about what I was doing that day. Otherwise, you can help me out. There's some one-time links, and there's a bunch of affiliate links down below, including everything you need for this tutorial. All affiliate links will be down there, and then there's coupon codes and lots of other things down there. So if you use that, little slice comes back to help me out. It's actually how I bought this printer, with those link usages. So thank you guys for watching, and until next time, happy printing.